Hello, everyone. I am coming to you today to talk a little bit about the Heroes Guild D10 system. I want to talk briefly about the very foundation of the character, which is the 9 stats that you get to create the character. The reason I went with 9 stats is I was going through a number of scenarios, and it didn't work out where I used the typical 6 or 5 or 3 stats. I wanted a lot more versatility with my characters. And so I went with 9 different stats. There's some physical stats, there's some mental stats, and what they do is they allow for the way that the skills break down. So what happens is you use those 9 stats. You have things like agility and strength and constitution, perception. Beauty is one of those, is a physical stat. And beauty is different from personality. I purposefully separated those things out. And what you do is you use those to calculate things like speed. Is based off of 5 of those. Your life is based off of constitution and spirit. And then there's different ways to calculate that based on your traits. And then you have your mirror, if you use mirror instead of material components, and recovery. Those are all based off of the various stats that you use, different combination of those. And then every skill in the game has a primary characteristic, and it gets the full value out of that. And then a secondary characteristic, which it gets half the value of that truncated. So if you have like a 7, then you'll divide that by 2 and you'll have a +3. And then those two stats go together to form the basis or the foundation of every skill. And so if one of those stats gets affected, then it affects the skills as well. For those particular characteristics, 5 is the human average. And the way that I've addressed animals and things like that in the game is animals can be intelligent too. So I don't give them a lower intelligence. An animal can have an intelligence of 5 if it's a smart. Like I've got a very intelligent dog. I'd probably give him a 7 in terms of intelligence. Intelligence doesn't necessarily mean sentience or human-like in awareness. So we're not giving the animals a human level of awareness, self-awareness, or sentience or anything like that. What we're doing is we're saying that this creature has the ability to store and recall information very well. And so animals can have a very high intelligence in this system. But you have an average of 5 for humans. 10 is the maximum normal human stat. So if you have a strength of 10, we're thinking like, Mr. Universe kind of stuff here, the strongest man in the world. Very, very high stat for having a 10. And then when you get into other kinds of creatures and they go beyond the 10, then these humans would consider that supernatural, something beyond what humans can normally achieve. And then those skills are incorporated into, or I'm sorry, those stats are incorporated into the skills, are incorporated into the traits and foibles. The way the traits and foibles are used, they're used for magic in the same way they're used for resistance. So every facet of the game is based on those 9 initial stats. And the way you come up with those, I went 3 different ways with arriving at those 9 stats. I always like the idea of a custom build, so I don't really have you roll individually for the stats. What I do is the first way to roll is a very safe way. You start with 45 points and you roll 3d10, and then you can distribute those, whatever the total of that is, up between the 9 stats. The second way to do that is a little more risky, still safe, but a little more risky. You roll 12d10, you re-roll 1s and 2s, and then you keep the 9 highest. You add those up, and then you distribute that total between the 9 stats. And then the last one is you have 12d10, and you just roll the 12d10. You add those up. That has the most highest possible roll that you can get, because you can get 120, but it also has the most risk, because if you roll 12 dice and you roll straight ones, you can get a 12, and there's no re-rolling or anything like that. So there's no exploding. This is one of the few places where the dice don't explode, but you can pick out of one of those 3 and then you distribute those according to how you think your character might be built. As you come to know the system better and you build more and more characters, you're probably going to get a better handle on how those characters or how those stats are going to be distributed out. But that's fine. They can change through story. The basic stats are meant to be changed through story. If I go to the gym and I work out, maybe I get stronger and those kinds of things. So they can change, but there isn't a basic mechanic for characters going to, like, I want to raise my stat. There's no levels, so they don't get new stats or points to put into stats through gameplay. It's through story. There has to be a story-wise reason for those numbers to change. So that's just a little bit about the foundation of the characteristics, the 9 characteristics that there are. See if I can do this from memory here. So there's agility, strength, constitution, beauty, and perception. Those are your 5 physical stats. And then you have intelligence, wisdom, spirit, and personality, which are your 4 kind of mental or emotional stats. So those are the 9 characteristics, or we call them the base characteristics for the game. So we're going to be doing a lot of these different just kind of basics about the game videos throughout the GameFound campaign. So if you have any questions about this, please ask, and I will be happy to answer.